All right, we're live. Let's see. All right. So, gonna do more of a question and answer today. Have some time before my 5 o'clock. It's like, you know what? Let's go live. Very excited. Since Thanksgiving, have closed 5 deals that we wanted to get done before the end of the year. I thought we were going to bounce up against the end of the year a little bit more than we ended up doing. So we got them done a little bit earlier than I planned. I thought it was going to be kind of a last minute hustle. One of the things that I get asked a lot was actually on the interview yesterday. And what's up, Adam? I was on the interview yesterday and asked, like, how do you run so many deals? How do you close so many deals and all of that? And I think a lot of it comes down to understanding what business you're in if you're a deal maker, but more importantly, what business you want to be in if you want to have a business that's long lasting, and how so many large businesses stay large, stay successful compared to the failure rate of small businesses. And it just comes down to the fact that, I'm in the business of buying businesses, and I'm very clear on that. And so even, I was asked by a very big influencer, and it's just been it comes up regularly, even with some of my partners, like Empire Flippers, like, man, like, what you're giving is so valuable. Your audience should be bigger. Like, you should be more of an influencer and all of that. Which kind of ties in. It's random that popped up. I guess that's a subject that's top of mind because I just put up a post. If you're not on my Instagram, you should follow my Instagram. So I put up a post that says "Money talks," which is a saying that we always hear. We always hear like "money talks," you know what I mean? But what we don't hear is that wealth seldom speaks at all, and that's representative of, like, just the biggest players. They're not talking that much. It's a struggle to get them to do an interview. And meanwhile, people that have a little money, like, they're begging to get interviewed. They're at every chance to talk. And so I think when you understand, okay, like, this is my real business, and then the side thing is talking, I guess you could say, or being an influencer, I guess you could say, then it becomes a lot easier just to get the stuff done. So I knew, like, I've been even more quiet the last month since Thanksgiving while we're trying to close these 5 deals. But now they're closed. I get to talk to y'all. So that stuff comes first. And it is interesting too, because even as we run these businesses, I was talking to one of our partners, Andrew, shout out to you. And we've got a deal that has a lot of potential that we're working on growing, and we're going through. And it's like, man, like, I could apply that to my kind of consulting business. There's that saying that the cobbler's children have no shoes. And sometimes, like, when you're busy, if your business is going really well, for the cobbler, preferably he doesn't have time to make new shoes for his kids, because he's making money that's going to put food on the table. And once he gets to the point that, oh man, all the cobbler's kids and his family and his cousins and his aunt, and he's giving great deals on everybody, he's giving shoes out for free. It's like, well, that's taken away from the actual business. So if business is good, then the cobbler shouldn't have time to give shoes to his own kids. So I mainly want to answer y'all's questions. So I'll pop in here. Adam Williams, what is up? Thanks. I love that you get to pop in. I know these are always at random times, kind of when I get a moment. So thanks for popping in here, man. Everything is excellent. I cannot believe that Christmas is already here. The Marine from Texas, you did caught alive. I think in 2021, I may have like a schedule or anything. So let me know if you have any questions. Anthony is new here. What's up, Anthony? Thank you so much for popping on. We got a great question here. So Santa, welcome first of all. And Santa asks, how did you start raising capital in the beginning for your first businesses? That is a great question. So a lot of times, what investors want to see is that you are somebody that's going to make things happen. And it's what I look for even now that I spend more time on the investor side. And so to get that first deal done, it was definitely bootstrapped. I had I had the owners of the business, first went to them, asked them the finance part of it. And that's one of the most powerful parts of all of this is the fact that there are just very few assets that you can buy. And the owner that's selling you that asset doesn't expect that you're just going to go to a bank and get all the money. If you go and you buy a car, you look on Craigslist, find a car for sale, and you go to that car owner and you say, hey, like if you just finance 50% of this for me, that'd be great. I can give you 50% of money and you finance 50% of it. They'd be like, what, dude? Like, no, I'm not a financing company. I just want to sell my freaking car. I'll find somebody else who can go to a bank and get the money. Back in the day, even for houses before the 70s, it was just a very normal thing that a seller of a house was going to have a portion of it that was seller finance. And then with mortgage-backed securities and the growth of FHA, Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, the growth of those institutions, it just became the norm that no, like, I'm not going to finance any of this. You're going to have to go and get a loan. And so this asset is one of the last very valuable assets where the seller just understands that they've got to finance part of it. So that's a really valuable thing because you get your first investor. Like I don't look and I don't treat the seller like they're supposed to give that to me. I do treat them like they're an investor because the more that they're convinced that investing in me is a good investment, the less money I've got to go out and raise from someone else. So they're my first investor that I want to convince that, hey, like I'm gonna first of all treat your business like it's my baby. So you're handing your baby over to me, and then I'm gonna turn this baby into the real profit machine that it can be. And the more that they're convinced of that, the more they want to invest it with you. Then you go out and you start to figure out where else to get the rest of the money. So for me, for that first deal, I did have a friend that came from a wealthy family. We were both in college, but he came from a wealthy family. Went to him, convinced him of my my crazy plan to buy this business. And he was like, yeah, I put in actually it was over the course of a few weeks, but he finally said, yeah, I'll put in 15,000. So I was still in, and what's funny too is like patience is so key. I found this deal and mulled over the deal and kind of went back and forth with them for 6 months before I even had it under contract. Then, over the course of a month and a half, I was able to convince my buddy to do 15,000. And then for the rest of it, it still took another couple months because I took out credit cards, and you have to write a check to your bank for the credit cards back in the day. I actually haven't used a credit card in like that in years. I'm thinking it's still the same, where you can get the cash advance. And this was 20 years ago, so they won't just transfer the money over to you. I had to deposit the check, wait for the check to come, that money to come in. Then I had another card that, I would deposit. So I built up the rest of it. But what that did was later on, I did raise I won't even say real capital, but I raised capital from investors. And maybe I think it might have been 250,000 or so. Again, this is 20 years ago. But it was at least a couple of thousand. A great example is the first investor that I had, and the first investor in my life. Shout out to you, Chris. You know, 20 years ago, I'm a 19-year-old, 20-year-old kid and black kid. And, you know, here's this white guy, super wealthy, comes down, meets with me. And, you know, I'm telling about the business, da, da, da. And he's like, but how did you get this business? Like, how did you get this business? And I told him that story of like, you know, I did this and I did that and da, da, da. And, you know, before I told him about the business, he was like, okay, I'm in. I can write you a check right now. And that was shocking. I'm like, wait a minute, you're gonna write the check like right now? I don't have a corporate. Like I was bootstrap. Like, it was like, you know, just me figuring out things. I didn't know anything about creating a company. And he basically said, like, hey, you can go to my attorney. He can, you know, he'll do this as a favor to me, create your corporation, blah, blah, blah. But I definitely want in. And he didn't even know everything about the business. But what he did know was like, okay, this kid is a hustler. This kid is somebody who's going to figure it out. And that's always what I'm looking for. You know, I'm looking for the people that aren't the whiners, that aren't the complainers, that aren't the woe is me type folks. It was like, hey, I didn't have a mentor, I didn't have anybody to figure it out. I just had to like figure it out on my own. And so that's what he saw. It's like, you know, like how'd you figure out how to do this stuff? It was like just had to try things until I figured it out. So that's what I think is a big thing that investors want to see, because the business could change, the business model could change, all of that. And you know, no matter how amazing what you're telling them about the business is, what they want to see is somebody who, when the environment changes, when there is a new competitor, when there is a new headache, they're not flustered and trying to, you know, feel like, oh no, it's the end of the world. It's like, okay, great. What's next? What's the next plan? How do I figure a way out of this? And so it's not trying to tell the person that you're like that. It's showing them by, you know, even when you don't have the capital, things are happening. You're forcing them. You're like just willing things into existence. And I think that is a very big deal. Awesome. Hopefully that was helpful. Let me know if that was helpful out there. Let's see, who else we got? Let me go back up here. Okay, Adam had a question. Yeah, that's the next one. All right, so what all do you normally include in a deck to show investors or financial institutions? A great place to start with that is Pitch Anything. I would read the Pitch Anything book. But a couple things, you know, you want to keep it very, very simple. The biggest mistake that a lot of people make is trying to get a bunch of information onto a slide. You've got to have, you know, kind of whatever the big idea is that, you know, you're trying to communicate. And if you've got 4 or 5 big ideas, you're in trouble, because even 10, 20 years ago, you know, people couldn't hold that amount of information. And now with attention spans the way they are now, it's just not going to happen. And you're not going to get any traction trying to explain a bunch of things. So you've got to have whatever the big idea is. You know, we've got this business. We see this hole in the business. We're going to fix it. Once that hole is fixed, the income is right here. It's going to go to right here. Your return is going to be that as a result. Now, we do have all these other things in addition to that, but that is the big idea. For me as an investor, you know, what I want to see is a little bit about you, what makes you right for that deal, a little bit about the history of the business. And when I say history, it's more like income, what they've tried that has worked, what they've tried that hasn't worked, and then basically the future plan. So you want to try to communicate all of that, but in a concise way. George, what up, homie? George says, thanks for the knowledge, Ace. Possible to talk about how you built your acquisition team. What were your first steps? So it's a progress. It's always changing. So what's interesting is I think it's more important to have the mechanisms and the machine built to always be building your team than to think that you're building your team and that's going to be it. So like for me, I'm all like number one, the number of deals is always growing. So unfortunately, unlike Warren Buffett or a larger institution, um, it takes a lot more work to manage these deals. And so the more deals we have, the bigger the team does need to be. So we need to always be growing. And then the other thing that's going to happen is a lot of my team comes from people who are looking to do deals. And so they get to be a part of my team, benefit from learning from me, and push that forward. So it's not a conflict for me. I make it so that that's a benefit for me. And I did see there's somebody from Ryan's live that I did yesterday. And I was really preaching the same thing to somebody who was he was an inspector. Where it's like you want to have a model where that is a part of your model to always be building your team. Now, if I were in your shoes, like what I really loved in my early days before I was training, like what my system now is a little really unique. But before, when I was just doing deals, I forced those poor employees of the businesses that I bought to become my deal team. So a lot of those teams ended up being the internal. So I remember specifically, when I was doing the roll up of the tanning salons, the first salon that I bought, they had a great operation team, and I put them to work, sending the letters, making the contact, building the deal flow, and they had a lot of downtime. If you happen to buy a business where people have downtime, like during the day we had to be open, but it's like a few customers coming in a day. So those folks, like before, they're talking to their boyfriends, they're playing games on the computer, they're doing all this stuff. It's like, oh, that's about to stop. We're about to get to work. We got to dig up some contact information on these salon owners. We need to be sending out letters. We need to be setting up meetings for me to go see them. It became a whole process. And then outside of that, obviously working on the business. So it's like, just that whole thing changed. But the team of, because again, no matter what business we go into, we want to think of it as we're building a business that buys businesses. Like there's no business I'm buying that isn't in the business of buying other businesses in this industry. So that becomes your team. All right, let's see. Who we got up next? Mr. Paul Chavez. What's up, man? Chavez. New here also. Welcome, Paul. Thanks for popping over. Heard you on Ryan's live chat Sunday. What's the best way to get started buying businesses? Warm market, brokers, biz buy sell, brick and mortar, or online businesses? I think when it comes to brick and mortar or online, I would pay attention to your skill set. So, if you don't have a lot of experience online, it can be it can be a bigger learning curve than a lot of people think. So, you either want a partner that gets it, but getting into an online, it's easier if you don't understand a brick and mortar business to overcome that hurdle than it is if you don't know anything about internet businesses. You never played around, never had an internet business or anything like that. I think the brick and mortar businesses are more forgiving because there's a lot more staying power. Online business, you can make an SEO mistake and it gets deranked, and that's it. Like you're literally out of business. Like today. And it's just very, very hard to make that kind of mistake in a brick and mortar business where you do something and it just kills the whole business in an instant. So I do like brick and mortar businesses for that reason. The other reason I love brick and mortar right now, I'm doing some international deals, but even in the US, the multiples are super, super low. The financings are have amazing interest rates, and it's a great time to be doing those deals. But on the online side, if you have that experience, the benefits are they're very scalable. They're easy to run from anywhere in the world. As somebody who travels all over the world or travels full time, basically, that's important. So yeah, it's a skill set thing, but it's also a lifestyle and kind of business goal kind of thing. So that's on that. On the reaching out, whether it's biz buy sell, brokers, warren market, the best deals are always going to be the businesses that you contact directly. So when I'm talking about even like having the business that I buy reach out to the other businesses, those are always going to be the best deals. But it's great, even just from an educational standpoint. I want to look at every deal that a broker has. I want to look at all the businesses that are on Biz by Sale because I want to learn something from looking at each one of those deals. And then every once in a while, I do come across a cool opportunity. So it's worth looking at. But yes, the very best deal is 100% going to be the one you find off market. Let's see. Stephen O, what up, homie? Stephen asks, can you give us details, numbers, paperwork, or is this just a talk? It is definitely just a talk, but it is a talk about whatever questions you have. So whatever questions that you're interested in, feel free to ask. If there's a specific question on some numbers or paperwork or something like that, I am happy to answer. All right. I am perplexed because the biggest problem I find is number one, finding investors. This is interesting. So this is I do these quite a bit, and this is the first time that the questions have really. Sorry, some of the questions are longer, and it cuts off my face. I want you guys to be able to see me. You know. Um, so getting a bunch of questions about investors, which is good. All right. So the Marine from Texas. And thank you for your service, by the way. I'm perplexed because I have two problems: find investors, getting them to move towards me, my companies, versus someone with many projects under their portfolio. Any ideas? So let's just talk about getting investors. For me, what I like to do, and even encourage clients to do, is just like anything else, you gotta have a funnel. Most people, and I get it all the time, people reach out to me and invest in their deals. Most people are reaching out and they're pitching their specific deal, and it sounds like that may be what you're doing. What I like to do first with investors is find out what they're looking to invest in and find out a little bit about their criteria. And as a deal maker, because this is very different, raising capital, I feel like raising capital as a deal maker is way easier than raising capital if you've like got one business and you got to find the exact person that wants to invest in that business. Because my job as a deal maker isn't to try to pitch them on my deal. My job as a deal maker is just to find out what kind of deals they like. And then as I'm looking at deals, send them to them. And so my reach out and my connection with investors looks a lot more like Amazon sending you products that you may like. It looks a lot more like when you go to Amazon and it's like, you may like this, than it does, hey, here's my latest, project. Will you invest in it? And so I'm just pitching. It's like, hey, I'm storytelling. I think that's the other key. So imagine being an investor and you get an email. It's like, hey, just wanted to let you know, based on our conversation, I came across this deal. I thought it might be of interest to you. Here's a couple of reasons that I thought it might be of interest. You said you really like e-commerce deals. You said you liked e-commerce deals that had great margins, and you loved the survival industry. And so I send that to them saying, you mentioned these things. And then I'll add to that. And here are the things that I like about the deal. And it's very early on. Who knows if it'll work out, but let me know if you're interested in following along. And that's a key phrase because you're not asking them to invest. You're basically saying, I'm going to go through due diligence. I'm going to go through, seeing if I can get the financing together, get all this stuff worked out. Let me know if you'd like to follow along. And that's all, not invest or anything like that. And then they follow along. They get to see my process, see how I work, da, da, da. 9 times out of 10, it doesn't even end up being a deal that I want to do. But they've gotten to see that, he's not just throwing stuff at me trying to get my money. He's saying no to a bunch of stuff. And then another deal comes up. It's like, hey, this one actually isn't in the survival industry, but it's interesting. It's interesting because of this, this, and this. And would you like to follow along? And they follow along. And so you're getting to know each other. You're getting to talk more. You're building that relationship. And so by the third or fourth time of that, that's when you're actually moving forward, and they get to kind of walk along that path with you. And so that would just be my recommendation. That kind of process. That's how I call it the investor funnel. But it works like a funnel where it's not pitching. It's more of a longer term building if you were doing internet marketing, it would be that kind of autoresponder, but it's really you, and you're really writing those emails. All right, I do got to bounce, guys. Let's see. Let's get one more in here. Really great questions. Let's see. Let's get one more. Got a recent MBA grad, Phil. What up, man? Private confidential says we didn't get an answer from the website. So there are 2 sites. You can go to acechapman.com. We only do the private equity fund incubator a few times a year. So if you haven't heard back, we just aren't. We do have that start again, but don't hesitate to just put your name in again. The Dealmakers Institute is always available. So you can go to dealmakersinstitute.com, check that out, and be able to access everything that we do. Over, I think, 100 calls of talking about real deals. I think we had somebody who was asking hey, what about the deals and the specifics and all that? I go through that. I do go through all of that, and they see everything in the back end, as well as each other's deals, which is very, very valuable. So check out Dealmakers Institute. Try to get a couple in. Steve O.S. If you're living in a large city, working in an investment firm for free. Yes, I like that. Let's see. As how does someone raise capital as a recent graduate? I'm interested in starting an LBO micro private equity structure, but the capital raising part is challenging for especially. So I would just do deals. I don't think, the reason that we do have the private equity fund incubator is because it's very difficult to do if you're not in an incubator. So the reason that we do that is for people that are looking to manage a fund to be able to start with us. I put in 6 figures of my actual real life money. We just did that. So I'm very selective on who gets in that. And, a good way to get in that is to join the Dealmakers Institute. But what we're doing with that is we're giving you a track record, because you got to have a track record if you're trying to really build a micro private equity fund structure. So what you got to do before that, if you're not going to join the Dealmakers Institute and you're not a part of the private equity fund incubator, is just do a deal. Just go out, do a deal, raise capital for that deal, and you build your track record kind of deal by deal, building it up that way and making money. It's not like you're not making money and you're waiting all this time. You're making money along the way. All right. Thank y'all for the amazing questions. I got to bounce out. But yeah, really great questions. I'll try to do more. It sounds like raising capital is really, really big. This is the first broadcast where we've had a lot of those questions come up. So I will plan to put together some more material and do some more videos on that in the coming weeks. I may be back on before Christmas, but if not, have a Merry Christmas. Talk to y'all soon.